Hello, welcome back to another Tabletop Talk. Today I thought I would take a few minutes to talk about second season football. It's a game I have purchased relatively recently and have been playing quite a bit of lately. Matter of fact, it's pretty much all I've been playing. I did play a game of 1939 APBA baseball yesterday to get that in, but so again, talk a little bit, maybe a mini review and how I've been playing it, some thoughts I have. I haven't put any notes down, so this is kind of off the cuff. So I'm sure when I get finished with this video, there will be a lot of things that I will have failed to mention. But anyway, I just hadn't done a video in a while and really enjoying this game, and wanted to share my thoughts on it so far. So interestingly enough, the only reason that I purchased this game is because Stratomatic Football only has 1972 in cards. And so, that wasn't enough for me. Again, we've talked about that in the past. Not sure why that is, but here I am with second season because I wanted more seasons than 1972. So second season has a pretty good selection of seasons. They have a lot of home brewed seasons as well. Minnesota, I can't remember the guy's name exactly, but he's done quite a few, and I've actually played a few games with his 1968 season. Let me see. I want to find that. So if anybody's interested, I think he goes up to like 72 maybe. But the website is Back to Minnesota. And he's got second season seasons, 58. Looks like pretty much everything through 1977. So again, I was playing with his 1968. There's from 1968 kind of what his setup looks like. On this particular season, the finders are 66 instead of the 20-sided die, which took a little getting used to, and they don't have finders for the sacks. Interestingly enough, they have the pass split up into screen, short, medium, and long, whereas the game itself only has long separated. But their rushing is not split up, whereas on the game, the outside and inside runs are split up. So I would have liked both of those. I really like where you've got the splits by screen, short, medium, and long, as opposed to long and then everything else, because obviously on the play calling, you get a lot of screens to the wide receiver, which you probably wouldn't get as much in a real-life game. So, but I do like the running backs being split into outside and inside, which his seasons didn't have. They're just lumped into together, so I would have liked to seen a hybrid of that. I do prefer the 20-sided die for the either the runner or the wide receiver selection. So, but anyway, you can see I've printed off quite a few. Again, I got pretty much all the seasons, and I haven't printed off every team of every season, but I've got quite a few there, as you can see. So not too many new seasons. I do have 2015. I had some business dealings with the Bengals defensive end or tackle. I can't remember his name now. Isn't that horrible? Let's see. Find him here. Geno Atkins. And I actually got tickets to a game against the Packers. I can't remember what year it was, but anyway. So I had some business dealings with him and knew him pretty well. A real good guy. And so I got 2015 in honor of him. He had a good year that year. Played a little bit of that. So Right now, as far as what I'm playing, I've just kind of got a hodgepodge. Been playing some 73 Bengals. I played 1980 Oilers and Steelers with Earl Campbell. I played 1990 Lions game for Barry Sanders. Played a couple, like I said, 68 and 69 Jets for Joe Namath. Just trying to see some of these guys I've heard about actually play. And so, again, enjoying it very much. As far as printing these out, you can see that I've kind of added the name of the team and the logo, and I have a PDF, Adobe PDF, where I can edit these things. And I've just kept them on one page. How the game does them is, and these came with the game, is that they have them split up to where you can do like New England defense with New Orleans offense. So instead of having two pages on the table, you just have basically one 8x10 or 8.5x11, whatever that is. Number one, I couldn't figure out how to print them like that. And then, as you can see, I decided to go with these things where I could just have the whole page up, and then have all the the teams off the table, and then I can see them there. So that works really good for me. I got these from Staples. They were like 20 a piece, and then I got a little stand here for the book, which again works really good for me. So that gives me the whole field and to play with. So all of these I've printed off myself from the PDFs. And again, I haven't printed every team, but got a few. And played some O.J. Simpson. I have played a little bit of that. So right now I'm just kind of, and that's actually Cookie Gilchrist. Simpson didn't come along till later. And Cookie Gilchrist is an interesting running back and story. But anyway, so kind of figuring out what I want to do. As far as the score sheet, this is one of the ones that comes with the game that you can download. The one thing about this score sheet that I wanted was like a scoring summary, so I made a Word document and then put it on the back. And I was thinking about doing like a drive summary, but right now what I have is like a big play summary. So if there's something really big that happened that I think is affecting the game, I'll put that here. So it kind of got a big play summary and then my scoring summary on the back. And but this is working out really well for me. So that's kind of what I'm using to keep score. I'm also been playing around with Pro Football Helper. Dave Gardner has a very good, helpful video about how to set up a season in that, which is a step-by-step that he created. So I recommend that highly because I needed that to figure out how to use that. So again, I've been playing with that. The advantage to that is that it keeps stats for you. If you want to, play more than one game, if you're doing like a season replay, it doesn't auto play any games. So like Strat, you can, play the team that you want to play, and then it will auto play the other one. So you don't have that option. And so, but it's a really cool tool. You can put logos in it and things like that. So mostly I've been playing just keeping stats on here. And I'm not for sure because obviously when you're doing the helper, I'm putting the results here and in the computer. So with football and just doing one team, I'm not for sure that that extra step is necessary, because I can always tabulate the stats. Football, the advantage is that you only have 14 to 17 games, or I think even 12 if you go back far enough. 12 to 17 games. So nothing like baseball where you've got 162 and the stat accumulation is much more intense than football. So, and another thing on that realm is that with football, this game takes a while. It takes me still about 3 hours because I'm not in a hurry. So I'll play a quarter, a quarter and a half, go do something else or get distracted and then come back to it. So it takes me probably about 3 hours to get through a game. But again, with only 14 to 17 games, that's not a big deal for me. And so I kind of enjoy coming back and picking it up. That's kind of where I'm doing. So I got a lot of options here, and sometimes having too many options can be a bad thing. But I'm really enjoying the gameplay. Those of you who don't know, who it's basically you get your results from this book here. Now this is the small one. Thankfully, my eyesight is still good enough that I can see this well enough to be able to play it. The big one would take more space on the table, and with a football game, you don't have individual cards, but it takes a lot of space with the field and everything. So the small one is working great for me because, again, I can still see it, and it takes up less space. Obviously got everything tabbed to where I can get to it quickly, which helps the speed of gameplay. I will say one selling point of this game that they mention, and I think is true, is that it gives you a much more visual picture of what's happening. It gives you the result and kind of tells you why it happened. And so you can visualize in your mind, who was responsible for what. So like, for example, let's say you have a long pass and you have a blitz, and it asks you if, your outside linebacker is a 2, and if he is, then the quarterback is hurried, and you check the Y chart. So basically, what happened is your outside linebacker pressured the quarterback to where he threw quicker than he wanted to, and so there's a possible interception. So, or it'll ask you if a defensive end is rated, a 1 for a run. If he is, then the halfback only gets 2 yards as opposed to 9. And so that, Bill Quinlan for the Browns was able to break that play up and, save a bigger run by, the opponent's halfback. And then the descriptions in the game are very good at kind of giving you a little bit extra as well. So, again, my football experience so far is just Strat, and I like Strat. Again, if they had more seasons, I probably would not have tried anything else. But as it is, I actually prefer this to Strat at this point, just because of that. For one reason, obviously having more seasons is another important factor. Being a cards and dice guy, I like the individual cards, but there is some advantages to having everything on one sheet of paper where it takes up less space on your table, less confusion. When I need to find the defensive tackle, everything is on one page. And the ratings are, varied enough that you don't actually get the results from the card like you do Strat, which is kind of cool. But still, there's enough ratings that you really feel like the ratings are making a difference in the game. And, and they do. And the 2s definitely make a big difference as opposed to the 1s. Quite often, I'll have a defensive tackle here, Bob Gain, who is a 2 and a 2 most of the time. He's a 2 negative. And so, there's been where the roles go where he's just completely wreaking havoc on the offense, and that's just really cool. Again, I like the fact that, Strat does that, but not to that degree. They've got the 0, 5, and 6, I think, is, if I remember correctly. It's been a little bit since I've played a game of Strat football. But this is more in depth where these guys are, really making more of a difference. And I like that, to where it's not just your ball handlers, but it's everybody on the field is making a big difference. So as far as my play calling, I did get the fast action deck, and so my happy medium is that I'm using the fast action deck to call the play. So like, for example, if I'll start out and I'll a medium run, and then I roll the dice for the results, and so that works out really well for me. I like rolling dice, but that's one less dice roll, and you still get the the variety. One thing that I'm still trying to figure out is and working on is like I'm a replay guy. I like to do replays of games. Football, I probably would be more likely to do what ifs. But so far, I like, again, I like seeing Jim Brown in 1957 in his element. And so I go to Football Reference and then check out who played. So far, what I have been doing is whatever quarterback started that game is who I go with. Everything else, I'm going with what's on the chart. So I do know I was doing 1973, and I think the fourth game of the season, the Steelers were in town to play the Bengals, and Franco Harris was out that game. And so I never could decide what I wanted to do about that. So I kind of still haven't picked that one back up yet, just because I can't decide if I want to take him out that game or if I want to keep everybody in and just go with the quarterbacks who started. Again, so I haven't really figured that out. I also, as far as like the propensity of what they do, I take the game into consideration. So, like, for example, here your 57 Browns are +4, and then I also use the team defense to add to it, and then I also look at the game. And so, I take the propensity of the team for the season and then what happened in that game, and then kind of decide whether I want them to be, their tendency to be run, or their tendency to be neutral, or their tendency to be pass. And so I take all of those into consideration and then just go with something that I feel feels right for that game, because I want it to be, similar to the replay, but yet I don't want to, have an exact replica of the replay. I at one point I was toying around with only using people who got passes that game. So in other words, if they were 5 guys who caught passes that day, those were the only 5 who could catch passes in my replay of that game. But I kind of got away from that. It's just a little too stifling. I like it to be a little bit more open than that. And so, in my baseball replays, when you have lineups and things like that, I do prefer as played. And but so far in this, I'm just going with the quarterback, and then again looking at how many passes and runs each team had that game, and taking into consideration the score. If it was a blowout, that's going to skew. So I lean a little more heavily on what their year totals were with the team defense to get my tendency for that game. And then I'm not above changing things. Obviously, if they're behind, I'll pass more. And so, this just gives me a guideline. I kind of like not having to call every play. I kind of like watching the game unfold. And so that's what I'm doing, is using these and then roll for my, for my play result. And then, the 20-sided die for my finder. And again, I'm not above changing it if it makes sense. And so far, that's working well for me. So as far as, project, I'm just not for sure yet. Again, I played a lot of different things. This may be one of those things where I just do some one-offs. I don't, I do like replays. And so, again, I've got quite a few seasons to select from, and then again with back to Minnesota, his seemed very good. It's, again, here's what his looks like. And I added the team logo there. Again, they don't have the sacks, finder, so you kind of go with what they, with what the game tells you. And that's another thing. Is like when I'm playing the game, if the sack, let's say is the H defensive end, is he a 2? If so, then he's sacked for 10 yards. I'll give him the sack if the number or the rating came into play. And same thing on an interception. If it's asking if your cornerback is a 2, then it's go to the Y chart. Then I say he gets that. If it's one of those deals where it just says the C or the D, then I'll use the finder or the sack is the same way. If it's not based on any particular rating, then I'll just use the sack rating that's on the 20-sided finder to determine who got the sack. So it's kind of a hybrid for me. If it's something that happened because of their rating, I give them that, and if not, if it's just a general, the A gets the interception, I actually would do the roll to figure out who got that. So the gameplay is not bad at all. Like I said, you get a really good visual what's happening, which kind of keeps you in the game. There are quite often where you will chase a rabbit where it is 6-7 rolls to get where you need to be. That can be a little frustrating to me. I like the penalties and I like the unusual things, but I mean, again, sometimes you'll roll 4 times and then it'll ask you to go somewhere else to roll again. I wish there was some way that you got to those results quicker. That can be a little frustrating when you're trying to get the result of a play and it just keeps taking you further and further down a rabbit hole, and then I'm having to keep notes over here to remember what happened, depending on what the penalty is. It's just, again, the results are great and exciting and interesting, but yet, it would be nice that you could get to them just a little quicker, without, I'm not exaggerating. Sometimes it feels like, and I think this is accurate, up to 7 rolls sometimes to get where you're, and maybe a little high, but still, the point is that you're wanting to get to the result, and it keeps taking you further and further and further, and then you're having to write down and keep track of, okay, this is what happens if this happens, and so that can be a little frustrating. I do like when you order the PDFs, they give you like a summary of the season, and so it will tell you there, that, hey, here's some things that kind of quirky about this season or this time period in football. Here's something you might want to do to, keep that in mind, based on the different rules or just the way football was played then. I find that very helpful. It also gives you a list of people who are injury exempt, which I use. So it'll, because this person played all the time, there's a different role where it's basically the worst they can do is be out the quarter. And I like that, because, again, that's something that realistic that I'd like to kind of keep in place. I do use the injuries, and but so far I haven't done like game to game because, again, I haven't really played like a project yet. So as far as calling plays, like I said, I'm going with this. I saw Al Wilson, who came up with this board, which you've seen on a lot of YouTubers, which I really love. Got this printed at Inked Gaming, I believe, and I got the stitching because I do all my things like that. Interestingly enough, I have 3 play mats, and they're all play games. So I don't know why that is, because play games, I love their games, but I play a lot more strat and other things. So I don't know why I end up, probably because Al Wilson makes these great ones that you just feel like you need to have. But anyway, got that from Al Wilson and Ink Gaming, and really love it. But they were talking about how that the built-in call playing is really good. So I did download this, and I haven't used it yet because I haven't felt like I needed to. I feel like that the call playing, the system that's built into the game is, the way it was, the game was meant. And so for me, I haven't felt the need to go to this yet, but I haven't, so I might, do that in the future. This was the play mat that came with the game, and I actually used it, and it worked great, except there's no way to keep time. So on the score sheet in the upper right-hand corner, you can actually do, the game is created where you can do like, slashes, and then I think 30 slashes is a quarter or a game or something like that. So you could keep score that way if you wanted to. But I like doing the actual, clock. So this came with the game, so I don't use that. And then these side charts came with the game as well, which I'm not using them either. I just find that I prefer staying in the book So far, these haven't really been helpful to me. I just used the chart in the book, so with them indexed, and again, I've played enough games that I know where everything's at, so I can get to it really quick, so I haven't used that. As far as the time, I pretty much use what's here. When I do a timeout, how I do it is that whatever the result normally would be, I cut that in half. So, for example, let's say that somebody's behind, their opponent has the ball, and they're in consume mode. Within the 2 minutes, that's 50 seconds. So I would say if the defensive team called a timeout, that would cut to 25. So basically whatever is here, I cut it in half, and that's how I use timeouts, and that seems to give me the feel that it's working pretty good. Every play is 30 seconds, unless they go out of bounds. And again, I'm playing, most of my seasons are, pre-74, or 80, to where the clock would stop when they go out of bounds. So if the book says out of bounds, I'm taking that as that they went out of bounds, the clock stopped, so it's only 15 seconds. So that's kind of how I'm doing it. On kickoffs, I do 15 seconds unless there's a return or a punt. If there's a return, I call it 30. I don't take time off for a extra point or a field goal. And so that's kind of how I do. Again, just the out of bounds in the book is that's a 15-second. If it doesn't say anything about going out of bounds, then it's 30 seconds. And again, unless you're in the 2 minute. So that's kind of how I do that. And so far as I've compared, plays per game with real games, it seems to be, in the ballpark to where it feels like that's working pretty good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Again, usually when I do these videos, I make a list of things that I want to talk about, and this one I just thought I would shoot from the hip. Again, I really enjoy the game. It's a lot of fun. It feels like football. It's detailed enough that it feels like that you're watching the game, again, because it's just not giving you the result. It's giving you some of the reasons behind that result. So again, you get a real good feel for the talents and the abilities of different people. Even to the point like where some of the ratings change if you're on which side of the field you're on. Like Junior Wren here, the safety for Cleveland, he goes to a 2 pass if they're inside, if the offense is inside, their 50. So he gets better, when it gets into crunch time. There's others who get worse, when it's crunch time. Like, Bob Gain, he drops to a 1, in crunch time. So and then, a lot of cool things like you've got exclamation points for the quarterback where he doesn't get sacked as much. I know Ken Anderson in 73 has an exclamation point. So he's avoided a sack and he can actually run, and he was an A outside runner. You got the bomb rating, which is really cool. So guys who go long, can go long with the bomb rating. You've got question marks where, or exclamation points for receivers to where they, will catch a pass where other receivers won't. I know Isaac Curtis, I believe in 73, has that exclamation. And then running backs, you've got the exclamation points where they don't fumble as much. And so, again, it really gives you a good feel for the players and how it affects the game. And, again, I've had a lot of fun with it. It's just a really good game. It seems to be well thought out. I haven't played enough of it to, give you any stat results. Everything feels realistic. I mean, in a game like this, baseball, you got 162 games, so it'll actually average out. When you have 14, 16 games, you're going to have probably more. I'm not a mathematician, don't claim to be. These guys who can figure this stuff out and figure what's going on, are way above me. I don't get that much into it, and probably ignorance is bliss. But again, the results aren't anything that make me feel like, is anything weird. It seems like the penalties and the plays and everything come out pretty good. And like any game like this, the results from the dice, Obviously, you can have a really good game or a bad game, and that's like real life. Even the best can have bad games and get stopped, and that's exciting. When you see Franco Harris and I had Franco Harris and Earl Campbell in that Steeler Oiler game in 1980, and uh, Earl Campbell had 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, whereas the Oilers just stopped Franco Harris. He had a really bad game, so the Oilers won the game in large part to that. So again, that's just a lot of fun. It's reliving these things. And as I've said many times, I just don't like modern sports. Even golf with this live thing, it's just I don't know. It's just and the political stuff. I just get tired of that crap. And so for me, I can go back and play these, and so I'm thankful for people who make these games, and I can go back and relive my prime time when I enjoyed it. I enjoyed sports, and also go back to see the stars of the past, apply their trade, and to me, that's given me my sports fix, and I'm very thankful for it and enjoy it very much. So I can't think of anything else. Looks like I'm about 30 minutes on this thing, and hopefully this didn't ramble too much. Any thoughts or ideas about something I might have missed? I would love to have a conversation about this. There's a lot that I probably didn't talk about, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on the game. I wanted to share kind of how I was playing it. I will try to get some more videos up on the channel of me playing. I know that people enjoy that. I enjoy watching other people play. Just to be completely honest, sometimes it's just instead of putting on the microphone and the earphones, getting the camera, it's just fun just to play the game. So I will make an effort to try to do that more. I know I owe some people some replay baseball. I will try to get that up. I haven't forgot you. And so again, I would appreciate any comments, anything that you guys add, how you're playing the game, things that you think might add to my enjoyment, and hopefully this helped you with yours. So anyway, I appreciate it very much, and I'll see you next time.